Staff Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her position behind the Barrett M82A1, the massive 50-caliber rifle steady against her shoulder. The morning sun cast long shadows across the mountain range training facility, and the wind had finally calmed to less than 5 miles per hour. Perfect conditions for what everyone believed would be an impossible shot. "Negative contact at 3,200 meters, Sergeant," came the voice through her earpiece. The spotter, Corporal Jenkins, squinted through his scope from the position beside her. "Range officer says the target's barely visible even with magnification." Maria didn't respond immediately. She had been studying this particular target for the past hour, watching how the mirage danced across the valley floor, noting every subtle shift in wind direction. The target was a standard silhouette, but at 3,200 meters, over 2 miles away, it appeared as nothing more than a tiny speck against the mountainside. The training exercise had drawn attention from across the base. Word had spread that someone was actually attempting the legendary 3,200-meter shot, a distance that pushed the absolute limits of the Barrett's effective range. Most snipers considered anything beyond 2,000 meters to be more luck than skill. At 3,200 meters, even the Earth's rotation became a factor that needed calculation. Behind the firing line, a small crowd had gathered. Other soldiers, instructors, and a few officers had come to witness what many expected would be a spectacular failure. The betting pool had already started, with most money on Maria missing by hundreds of meters. "Atmospheric pressure is holding steady," Maria murmured, more to herself than to Jenkins. She had spent years perfecting her understanding of long-range ballistics. Temperature, humidity, altitude, wind speed at multiple points along the bullet's path, every variable mattered when attempting shots at extreme distances. The Barrett weighed nearly 30 pounds, its massive muzzle brake designed to tame the considerable recoil of the 50 BMG cartridge. Maria had been shooting this particular rifle for 3 years, knowing its quirks and characteristics better than any other piece of equipment she had ever used. She had hand-loaded the ammunition herself, weighing each powder charge to the 10th of a grain. "Winds shifting," Jenkins reported, 2 to 3 miles per hour. "Coming from the southeast now." Maria made micro-adjustments to her scope, compensating for the wind change. At this distance, even a light breeze could push the bullet several feet off target. She controlled her breathing, slowing her heart rate through techniques learned during years of sniper training. The crowd behind them had grown larger. Someone mentioned that General Harrison was visiting the base today, conducting inspections of various training facilities. Maria tried to push the distractions from her mind, focusing entirely on the target that seemed impossibly small through her scope. She had earned her position as one of the battalion's designated marksmen through consistent performance at standard ranges. Her qualification scores were among the highest in the division. But this shot represented something different, a chance to join the very small group of snipers who had successfully engaged targets beyond 3,000 meters in training conditions. The mathematics involved were complex. The bullet would drop over 400 feet during its flight time of approximately 4 seconds. It would drift sideways due to wind, lose velocity due to air resistance, and even be affected by the Coriolis effect caused by the Earth's rotation. Maria had calculated and recalculated every variable multiple times. "Range is clear," the range safety officer announced over the radio. "You are cleared to engage when ready." Maria settled deeper into her prone position, her body forming a stable platform for the rifle. Years of training had taught her that consistency was everything, the same grip pressure, the same cheek weld against the stock, the same breathing pattern before each shot. Through her scope, the target seemed to waver in the heat mirage rising from the valley floor. She waited for the atmospheric conditions to settle, watching for that moment of clarity that experienced snipers learn to recognize. "Spotting scope ready," Jenkins confirmed. He would track the bullet's impact, though at this distance, even that would be challenging. The time of flight meant that any atmospheric change during the bullet's journey could affect its trajectory. Maria had started shooting as a child on her family's ranch in Texas. Her father had been a competitive shooter who taught her the fundamentals of marksmanship before she was 10 years old. By the time she enlisted, she could consistently hit targets at 600 meters with her father's hunting rifle. The Army had recognized her natural ability and sent her to advanced marksmanship training. She had excelled in every phase, learning not just to shoot accurately, but to understand the science behind precision shooting. Weather reading, ballistics calculation, range estimation, all the skills that separated a marksman from someone who just happened to be a good shot. Now, lying behind the massive Barrett rifle, she represented the culmination of years of training and dedication. The 200-meter shot was not just a test of equipment, but of everything she had learned about the art and science of long-range shooting. "Conditions are optimal," she whispered to Jenkins. The wind had steadied, the mirage had cleared, and her heart rate had settled into the controlled rhythm she had practiced thousands of times. She placed her finger on the trigger, applying the precise pressure she had developed through endless dry fire practice. The Barrett's trigger broke cleanly, surprising even her with its timing, exactly as she had been taught. The rifle's massive muzzle brake redirected the blast sideways, creating a thunderous roar that echoed across the valley. The recoil, while substantial, was manageable due to the rifle's weight and her proper positioning. Maria immediately worked the bolt, chambering another round while keeping her scope on target. "Time of flight, 4 seconds," Jenkins announced, his eye pressed to the spotting scope. The crowd behind them had gone silent, everyone waiting for confirmation of impact. At extreme ranges, even the spotter could miss the bullet's impact. The projectile was traveling at over 1,800 feet per second when it left the barrel, but by the time it reached 3,200 meters, it had slowed considerably and was dropping rapidly. "Impact." Jenkins paused, adjusting his scope's focus. "Stand by." The seconds stretched out like hours. Maria kept her breathing controlled, her rifle steady, ready for a follow-up shot if needed. She had planned for this attempt for weeks, studying weather patterns, calculating ballistics tables, and preparing mentally for the challenge. "Confirm hit!" Jenkins suddenly shouted. "Definite impact on target!" The crowd behind them erupted in cheers and amazed conversation. Maria allowed herself a small smile but remained in position, wanting confirmation from the electronic scoring system that monitored the target. "Range control confirms impact," came the voice over the radio. "Scoring hit at 3,200 meters. Outstanding shot, Sergeant." As Maria began to pack her equipment, she noticed increased activity behind the firing line. Someone mentioned that General Harrison had indeed arrived and was asking questions about the shot. She focused on properly cleaning and securing her rifle, treating it with the respect that such precision equipment deserved. The crowd gradually dispersed, but the excitement of what had just occurred was obvious. A successful 3,200-meter shot was rare even among the most experienced snipers, and word would spread quickly throughout the base. Jenkins helped her carry the equipment back to the armory, both of them quiet after the intensity of the past few hours. They had been working together as a sniper team for over a year, and this represented their greatest achievement together. "That was incredible shooting," Jenkins finally said as they secured the rifles in the armory. "I've never seen anything like that calculation work out so perfectly." Maria nodded, already thinking about the documentation that would be required. Extreme-range shots were carefully recorded, with witness statements and range officer confirmations. This shot would become part of her permanent record, potentially opening doors for advanced training opportunities. As they walked back toward the barracks, Maria noticed a small group of officers near the base commander's vehicle. Among them was a tall figure whose bearing immediately identified him as senior leadership. Even from a distance, the man's presence commanded attention. "Is that General Harrison?" Jenkins asked, following her gaze. Before Maria could respond, she noticed the group was walking in their direction. The general's aide was pointing toward them, clearly identifying Maria as the shooter. Her heart rate, which had finally returned to normal after the shot, began to increase again. General Harrison was a legend in the sniper community. His combat record included some of the longest confirmed kills in military history, and he was known for his personal interest in marksmanship programs. Having him witness her shot, even indirectly, was both an honor and a source of considerable nervousness. "Sergeant Santos," called the base commander as the group approached, "the general would like to speak with you about your shot this morning." Maria came to attention as General Harrison stepped forward. He was exactly as she had imagined, tall, sharp-eyed, and carrying himself with the confidence that came from decades of distinguished service. His uniform bore the ribbons and badges that told the story of a career spent in the most challenging assignments the military could offer. "At ease, Sergeant," the general said, his voice carrying the authority of command, but also a note of genuine interest. "I understand you just made a rather impressive shot." "Yes, sir," Maria replied, maintaining military bearing while trying to process the surreal nature of the situation. 3,200 meters with the Barrett." "Sir?" The general's eyes narrowed slightly, and Maria noticed he was studying her uniform with particular attention. His gaze stopped at her chest, where her various qualification badges were displayed according to regulations. "That's quite a collection of marksmanship awards," he commented. "Distinguished marksman, expert rifleman, advanced sniper." His voice trailed off as he focused on one particular badge. "Is that a 3,200-meter marksman qualification badge?" Maria felt her chest tighten. The badge was rarely seen, awarded only to those who had successfully engaged targets at extreme range under controlled conditions. She had earned it during an advanced training course 2 years earlier, but few people recognized what it represented. "Yes, sir," she confirmed. "Earned at the Advanced Marksmanship School." "Sir." General Harrison stopped walking entirely, his expression shifting from casual interest to something much more focused. The other officers in his group also halted, sensing that something significant had just occurred. The general's reputation for recognizing talent was well known throughout the Army. He had personally selected snipers for special assignments, and his recommendations could transform careers. Maria realized that this chance encounter might be more important than the impressive shot she had just made. "Sergeant," General Harrison said slowly, "I think we need to have a longer conversation." General Harrison gestured toward a nearby building, clearly intending for their conversation to continue away from the curious crowd. Maria found herself walking alongside one of the most respected officers in the military, still processing the fact that he had recognized the significance of her marksman badge. "Colonel Mitchell," the general addressed the base commander, "I'd like to borrow your conference room for a few minutes." It wasn't really a request. Inside the building, Maria was directed to a chair across from General Harrison at a polished wooden table. The other officers remained standing, creating an atmosphere that felt both formal and oddly intimate. The general's aide placed a thick folder on the table but kept it closed. "Tell me about the Advanced Marksmanship School," General Harrison began, leaning back in his chair. "Specifically, tell me about the circumstances under which you earned that 3,200-meter qualification." Maria chose her words carefully. The Advanced Marksmanship School was a classified program that trained snipers for specialized missions. Not everyone who attended was permitted to discuss the details of their training. "Sir, I attended the 12-week course at the classified location in Nevada. The 3,200-meter qualification was part of the final assessment. We had 3 attempts over 2 days to successfully engage targets at that distance under varying conditions." "And you succeeded on which attempt?" the general asked. "First attempt, sir. Clean hit, center mass." A slight smile crossed the general's face. "The instructors at that school don't hand out participation trophies, Sergeant." What made your shot successful when others failed? Maria had thought about this question many times since earning the qualification. The other students at the school had been exceptional marksmen, many with combat experience and impressive service records. What had set her apart was something she had developed over years of practice. Sir, I believe it was my approach to environmental calculation. I spent extra time studying atmospheric conditions at extreme distances. While other students focused primarily on rifle mechanics and basic ballistics, I developed a more comprehensive understanding of how environmental factors interact at extended ranges. The general nodded, apparently satisfied with her answer. He opened the folder his aide had placed on the table, revealing several documents that Maria couldn't see clearly from her position. Your service record makes for interesting reading, he continued. Top of your class in basic sniper training, expert ratings on 7 different weapon systems, instructor certification for advanced marksmanship. He looked up from the file. Tell me about your background before the military. Grew up on a ranch in Texas, sir. Started shooting when I was 8 years old. My father was a competitive shooter who competed in long-range matches across the Southwest. What kind of matches? Precision rifle competitions, sir. Some at distances up to 2,500 meters. He taught me to read wind and calculate atmospheric effects before I understood the mathematics behind it. General Harrison exchanged glances with one of the other officers. And your education? Associate degree in mathematics, sir, completed through correspondence while serving. Currently working on a bachelor's degree in physics. The general closed the folder and studied Maria with increased interest. She sensed that this conversation was leading somewhere specific, but couldn't determine his intentions. Sergeant Santos, I'm going to share some information with you that requires your complete discretion. What I'm about to discuss cannot leave this room without proper authorization. Do you understand? Yes, sir. There's a specialized unit that handles certain types of missions requiring extreme-range marksmanship capabilities. These missions involve situations where conventional approaches are not feasible due to distance, terrain, or political considerations. Maria felt her pulse quicken. She had heard rumors of such units, but had never expected to be considered for that level of responsibility. The unit requires shooters who can consistently perform at distances beyond 3,000 meters under field conditions, not training range conditions, but actual operational environments with incomplete intelligence, time pressure, and lives depending on their accuracy. The general paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle. Maria understood that he was describing missions where failure was not an option. Your record suggests you might be suitable for this type of work. Your technical understanding of long-range ballistics, combined with your demonstrated ability to perform under pressure, indicates potential for this specialized role. Sir, I would be honored to be considered for such an assignment. The consideration process is extensive, the general continued. Additional training, psychological evaluation, security clearance upgrades, and live fire assessments under conditions designed to replicate operational stress. One of the other officers stepped forward and placed another folder on the table. This one was marked with security classifications that Maria recognized as being well above her current clearance level. If you're interested in pursuing this opportunity, there are several immediate requirements. First, you would need to complete an advanced course in what we call extreme environmental shooting. This covers atmospheric conditions at altitudes and distances not typically encountered in standard training. Second, another officer added, you would undergo training in field reconnaissance and target acquisition. The missions we're discussing often require the shooter to also serve as their own spotter and intelligence gatherer. General Harrison nodded toward his aide, who produced a single sheet of paper. This is a preliminary agreement to undergo evaluation for the program. Signing it doesn't commit you to anything beyond the assessment process, but it does initiate the security clearance review. Maria stared at the document without reaching for it. This was clearly a significant decision that could alter the direction of her military career. The opportunity was exactly what she had dreamed of since beginning sniper training, but the implications were serious. "Sir, may I ask about the time commitment for the evaluation process?" "Initial assessment is 6 weeks. If you're selected to continue, the full training program is an additional 16 weeks. Successful completion would result in assignment to the unit for a minimum of 3 years." "And the nature of the missions?" "I can't provide specifics without security clearance approval, but I can tell you that the work involves protecting American interests in situations where conventional military action is not appropriate. These are precision missions where surgical accuracy prevents larger conflicts." Maria understood the implications. The general was describing counter-terrorism operations, high-value target elimination, and missions that would never appear in public records. The work would be dangerous, demanding, and completely classified. "The compensation reflects the specialized nature of the assignment," the general added. "Significant increase in base pay, special duty allowances, and accelerated promotion opportunities for exceptional performance." "Sir, what happens if I'm not selected during the evaluation process?" "You return to your current assignment with no negative impact on your career. The evaluation itself demonstrates initiative and ambition, qualities that are noted positively in your record." Maria looked around the room at the officers watching her. Each of them carried themselves with the bearing of someone who had served in the most demanding assignments the military offered. They were giving her an opportunity to join their ranks. "The decision doesn't have to be made immediately," General Harrison said, noticing her hesitation. "You can take 48 hours to consider the opportunity." "Sir, I don't need 48 hours. I'm interested in pursuing the evaluation." The general smiled again, this time more broadly. "I hoped you would say that. Your reputation preceded you even before this morning's impressive demonstration." Maria signed the preliminary agreement, understanding that she had just taken the first step toward a completely different kind of military service. The excitement was tempered by the knowledge that the challenges ahead would test every skill she had developed. "Report to Building 247 at 0600 tomorrow morning," the general's aide instructed. "Bring only essential personal items. Everything else will be provided during the evaluation period." As the meeting concluded, General Harrison stood and extended his hand. "Sergeant Santos, I have high expectations for your performance. The country needs people with your combination of technical skill and dedication to excellence." "Thank you for the opportunity, sir. I won't disappoint you." "I don't believe you will." Walking back to the barracks, Maria felt the weight of what had just occurred. In the span of a single morning, she had made an impossible shot and been recruited for a classified program that could define the rest of her military career. Jenkins was waiting for her outside the armory, clearly anxious to hear about her conversation with the general. His expression suggested he already suspected that something significant had happened. "So?" he asked simply. "I can't discuss the details, but I'll be leaving for special training tomorrow morning." Jenkins nodded slowly, understanding the implications even without specifics. "You've been recruited for something classified." "Something like that?" They walked in silence for several minutes before Jenkins spoke again. "You know, when we were setting up that shot this morning, I never imagined it would lead to this." "Neither did I." "Are you nervous about whatever comes next?" Maria considered the question carefully. The evaluation process would undoubtedly be more challenging than anything she had experienced in her military career. The standards for the specialized unit would be impossibly high, and failure would mean returning to conventional assignments, knowing she had been found lacking. "Nervous doesn't quite cover it," she admitted, "but this is exactly the kind of opportunity I've been working toward my entire career." That evening, Maria spent time organizing her equipment and personal items. The instructions had been specific about bringing only essentials, which suggested that the training location was completely self-contained. She called her parents in Texas to inform them that she would be unavailable for several weeks due to training requirements. Her father, understanding the nature of military service, didn't ask for details she couldn't provide. "Just remember everything I taught you about reading conditions," he said before ending the call. "Trust your instincts and don't overthink the fundamentals." Maria packed her few essential belongings, including a small notebook where she had recorded observations about atmospheric effects on long-range shooting. The notebook represented years of accumulated knowledge that might prove valuable during the evaluation. As she prepared for sleep, Maria reflected on the chain of events that had led to this opportunity. The morning's shot had been planned as a personal challenge, a test of her abilities against an extreme standard. She had never imagined that General Harrison would witness the aftermath, or that her qualifications would align with a classified program. The 200-meter Marksman badge that had caught the general's attention represented more than just a successful shot. It symbolized her commitment to pushing beyond conventional limits, to developing skills that few others possessed. Tomorrow would begin a process that would either validate years of training and dedication or demonstrate that she had reached the limits of her abilities. Either way, she was ready to discover what those limits actually were. The specialized unit represented the pinnacle of precision marksmanship within the military. Being selected would mean joining an elite group whose existence was known only to those with the highest security clearances. The work would be dangerous and demanding, but it would also represent the ultimate application of every skill she had developed. Maria fell asleep thinking about her father's advice and the shot that had changed everything. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight she was simply a soldier who had been recognized for excellence and given an opportunity to prove herself at the highest level. The helicopter descended through thick clouds toward a landing zone that Maria couldn't see until the final moments. When the aircraft finally broke through the cloud cover, she found herself looking at a training facility unlike anything in her previous military experience. The complex was built into a mountainside, with ranges extending across multiple valleys and elevations that varied by thousands of feet. "Welcome to the Advanced Strategic Marksmanship Center," announced Major Williams, the officer who had collected Maria and 5 other candidates at 600 that morning. "For the next 6 weeks, this facility will test every aspect of your shooting abilities under conditions designed to replicate the most challenging operational environments." The other candidates were impressive even by military standards. 2 were Marine Corps snipers with combat experience, 1 was an Army Special Forces operator, another was a Navy SEAL with multiple deployments, and the last was an Air Force Special Operations sniper. Maria was the only woman among the group and the only one without special operations experience. During the initial briefing, Major Williams explained the evaluation criteria. Candidates would be assessed on precision shooting at distances up to 3,500 meters, environmental calculation accuracy, target acquisition speed, operational planning, and psychological stability under extreme stress. "The failure rate for this program is 80%, Major Williams continued. "Most candidates are eliminated not due to lack of shooting ability, but because they cannot adapt their skills to the operational requirements we face." The first week consisted of baseline assessments. Each candidate was required to engage targets at increasing distances, while instructors recorded every variable: ammunition expended, time to acquire targets, accuracy under different weather conditions, and ability to calculate ballistics adjustments without electronic assistance. Maria's performance during these initial tests placed her consistently in the top 2 candidates. Her mathematical background proved invaluable when calculating atmospheric effects at extreme altitudes, and her methodical approach to environmental assessment impressed the instructors. "Santos," called Instructor Gunnery Sergeant Rodriguez after the 3rd day of testing. "Your ballistics calculations are consistently more accurate than the computerized firing solutions. How are you managing that?" "Gunnery Sergeant, I've been tracking specific atmospheric conditions that the computers don't fully account for, temperature gradients at different altitudes, localized wind patterns created by terrain features, humidity variations that affect bullet drag. Rodriguez nodded approvingly. Show me your method. Maria opened her notebook and explained her system for recording environmental observations. Over years of shooting, she had developed techniques for measuring atmospheric conditions that went beyond standard meteorological data. This is doctoral-level atmospheric physics, Rodriguez commented. Where did you learn this approach? Trial and error, Gunnery Sergeant. Every missed shot taught me something new about environmental factors. The second week introduced operational scenarios. Candidates were required to plan and execute shots while dealing with time pressure, incomplete target information, and simulated combat stress. Sleep deprivation, physical exhaustion, and psychological pressure were systematically introduced to test performance under realistic conditions. During one particularly challenging exercise, candidates were required to engage a target at 3,400 meters while under simulated enemy fire. Blank rounds and explosive simulators created chaos around the shooting position, testing each candidate's ability to maintain focus under extreme pressure. Maria's shot placement remained consistent, even as explosions detonated nearby and instructors shouted contradictory commands designed to create confusion. Her ability to compartmentalize external distractions while maintaining the mental precision required for extreme-range shooting set her apart from the other candidates. "Outstanding performance, Santos," Major Williams commented after reviewing the exercise results. "Your shot group at 3,400 meters was half the size of any other candidates, despite identical stress conditions." By the end of the second week, 2 candidates had been eliminated. The Marine Corps snipers had struggled with the mathematical precision required for extreme environmental calculation, and one had been removed after failing to maintain accuracy under psychological pressure. The third week introduced advanced reconnaissance and intelligence gathering. Candidates learned to operate independently in hostile territory, acquiring targets through their own surveillance rather than relying on external intelligence. This required skills beyond marksmanship, camouflage, movement techniques, communication procedures, and survival capabilities. Maria's ranch background proved unexpectedly valuable during this phase. Years of tracking wildlife and reading natural signs translated directly into military reconnaissance techniques. Her ability to remain motionless for extended periods and observe target areas without detection impressed instructors who had worked with special operations personnel. "Your fieldcraft is exceptional for someone without special operations training," commented Instructor Sergeant Major Thompson. "Most conventional snipers struggle with the independence required for these missions." "Sergeant Major, I spent years hunting in terrain similar to this. Patience and observation were more important than shooting ability when tracking game across large areas." The fourth week focused on equipment familiarization and advanced ballistics. Candidates learned to use specialized rifles and ammunition designed for extreme range work. These weapons were different from anything in standard military inventory. Custom-built systems optimized for accuracy at distances beyond conventional combat ranges. The rifle assigned to Maria was a precision instrument weighing over 40 pounds, with a barrel length optimized for the specific cartridge it fired. The scope was a sophisticated optical system with integrated range-finding and ballistic computation capabilities, but instructors emphasized that electronic systems could fail and candidates must be capable of making accurate shots without technological assistance. "This weapon system is capable of engaging targets effectively at distances approaching 4,000 meters under optimal conditions," explained Instructor Chief Warrant Officer Davis. "However, the weapon is only as accurate as the person behind it. Your understanding of ballistics and environmental factors becomes critical at these ranges." Maria's performance with the specialized equipment exceeded instructor expectations. Her methodical approach to learning new systems, combined with her deep understanding of ballistic principles, allowed her to achieve consistent accuracy with unfamiliar weapons more quickly than other candidates. During the 5th week, candidates faced the most challenging assessment, a comprehensive field exercise requiring them to plan and execute a precision engagement under realistic operational conditions. Each candidate was given a scenario involving a high-value target located in complex terrain with specific constraints on approach routes, time windows, and environmental conditions. Maria's assignment involved engaging a target at 3,600 meters across a valley with significant elevation changes and unpredictable wind patterns. She had 48 hours to conduct reconnaissance, plan her approach, and execute the shot. Success required integrating every skill learned during the previous weeks. She spent the first day studying the target area through her scope, mapping wind patterns at different elevations and times of day. The terrain created complex air currents that would affect bullet trajectory differently depending on atmospheric conditions and time of engagement. Her notebook filled with observations about temperature changes, humidity variations, and wind patterns throughout the day. The target area was visible only from specific locations, each offering different advantages and challenges for the shot. On the second morning, Maria moved into position before dawn, allowing time for final environmental assessment. The shot window was limited to a 4-hour period when lighting and atmospheric conditions would be optimal. Through her scope, the target appeared impossibly small at 3,600 meters. Even with maximum magnification, precise placement required calculations that pushed the limits of her mathematical abilities. Wind speed, direction, and variation at multiple altitudes along the bullet's path all required careful measurement and calculation. At 10:30 hours, atmospheric conditions aligned with her predictions. Wind had stabilized, temperature gradients were minimal, and visibility was optimal. Maria settled into the firing position she had practiced hundreds of times, her body forming a stable platform for the massive rifle. The shot broke perfectly, surprising her with its timing as her father had taught her years earlier. Through the scope, she tracked the bullet's flight, watching for impact on the distant target. "Hit," announced the observer through her earpiece. "Clean center mass at 3,600 meters. Outstanding shot. Candidate." Maria allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before beginning the procedure for safely clearing the weapon and preparing to move from the position. The exercise wasn't complete until she had successfully withdrawn from the area without detection. The final week consisted of psychological evaluation, medical assessment, and administrative processing. Candidates who had successfully completed the field exercises were interviewed extensively about their motivations, stress responses, and understanding of the responsibilities associated with the specialized unit. "Sergeant Santos," the psychologist began during her evaluation, "this program prepares candidates for missions that carry significant moral and psychological weight. How do you process the responsibility of precision elimination of human targets?" Maria had anticipated this question and given it considerable thought throughout the evaluation period. "Ma'am, I understand that the missions we're training for involve life and death consequences. My approach is to focus on the technical aspects of the task while maintaining awareness of the larger purpose. These missions protect American lives and interests through precision action that prevents larger conflicts. And how do you handle the isolation and independence required for these assignments?" "Ma'am, I'm comfortable working independently and making decisions without immediate supervision. My background taught me self-reliance and careful decision-making under pressure." On the final day of the evaluation, Major Williams assembled the remaining 3 candidates for individual meetings with program leadership. Maria was surprised to find General Harrison among the officers conducting her final interview. "Sergeant Santos," the general began, "your performance during this evaluation has been exemplary. Your technical skills, adaptability, and psychological stability all indicate suitability for our specialized missions." "Thank you, sir." However, I want to ensure you understand the nature of the work you're volunteering for. The missions we conduct are not traditional military operations. They require independent action in hostile territory, often with minimal support and significant personal risk. Sir, I believe I understand the requirements and accept the associated risks. General Harrison exchanged glances with the other officers before continuing. Very well. You have successfully completed the evaluation process and are hereby selected for assignment to the 1st Strategic Reconnaissance Unit. Your rank will be advanced to Staff Sergeant, and you'll receive additional training specific to our operational requirements. Maria felt a surge of pride and excitement that she carefully controlled. Thank you for the opportunity, sir. I'm ready to begin my new assignment. Your first operational deployment will be in 8 weeks, following completion of mission-specific training. You'll be working with a small team on assignments that I cannot discuss without proper clearance. But I can tell you that your unique skills will be essential to mission success. 3 months later, Maria found herself in a position that would have been unimaginable when she first attempted the 200-meter shot. She was now part of an elite unit conducting missions that required the absolute pinnacle of precision marksmanship skills. Her first operation involved providing overwatch for a hostage rescue mission in mountainous terrain. The shot required was 2,800 meters across a valley, eliminating a threat that conventional forces could not approach without compromising the hostage's safety. As she settled behind her rifle in the pre-dawn darkness, Maria thought about the journey that had led to this moment. From her father's ranch in Texas to the specialized training facility, every experience had contributed to her ability to perform this critical mission. The target appeared in her scope exactly as intelligence had predicted. Maria made final calculations for wind and atmospheric conditions, then waited for the signal to engage. When the shot broke, it was perfect, clean, precise, and decisive. The mission continued without compromise. Hostages were recovered safely, and Maria's position remained undetected throughout the operation. Later, as she cleaned her rifle following the successful mission, Maria reflected on how a single impressive shot had changed the trajectory of her entire military career. The 3,200-meter marksman badge that had caught General Harrison's attention now represented just the beginning of her capabilities. She was no longer just an exceptional marksman. She was a strategic asset whose skills served at the highest levels of military operations. The precision and dedication that had defined her approach to shooting now contributed directly to protecting American interests around the world. The general had been right about her potential. Given the opportunity to develop her abilities to their fullest extent, Maria had become exactly what the specialized unit needed, a sniper whose technical excellence and unwavering reliability made impossible missions achievable.